Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, The AI Advantage, Transforming the Patient Billing Experience and Accelerating Cash Flow. My name is James Muir, and I'm going to be your host for this session. So we're thrilled to have you with us. We're looking forward to an engaging and informative session. Before we get started, let me just go over a couple housekeeping items for us so we got a smooth experience for everybody. So all the participants will be muted during the presentation so that there's minimal background noise. And then we will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So there's a Q&A button there that you can use. So please submit your questions at any time. We will see those during the session. And so if we can, we'll incorporate it right during the webinar. If not, don't worry about it. We will handle it at the end. And then this session is being recorded and will be made available to all the registered participants after the session. In fact, you're going to get an email along with the link to the recording, as well as some additional resources that we'll talk about during the presentation. And so now, without further ado, let's dive into our topic. Right now, everybody is exploring ways to use artificial intelligence to improve practice revenue. And since AI is such a hot topic right now, I thought, man, who could we bring and invite to educate us on this topic that would be the absolute best? And that person is Andy Kwan, CEO and co-founder of Raxia. And so join me in welcoming Andy. He's an expert on machine learning, patient collections, and cybersecurity. And for those who don't know him like I do, he is the CEO and co-founder of Raxia, which is an AI-powered patient billing and payment solution for medical practices. And at Raxia, he's leading the modernization of the whole patient financial engagement using AI automation. Fun fact also, before establishing Raxia, he was also the CEO of Plum Voice, a communication technology company that employed AI to automate customer interactions for service firms, healthcare companies, and tech companies. So he's been doing this a long time. And he's got a degree in physics from Harvard University, where he also studied computer science. And his background in systems engineering, AI, and automation, has helped really shape what they do at Raxia. And they use all of those techniques to improve patient engagement and help people get paid better. So I don't want to steal Andy's thunder here, but I will tell you that many of our clients use Raxia, and we keep track of the data. And on the whole, they've experienced an 86% reduction in billing costs, about a 92% decrease in phone volume, which is very popular with Devin Doctor, our call center director, and a 30% increase in revenue. So I think that qualifies him to be with us today to talk about using AI to improve financial performance. So Andy, thank you for being with us.
Hey, thanks, James. Let me fire up the slide deck here.
Yeah. So while you're doing that, let's do a quick poll so we can get a feel for who we've got in the audience. And Katie, if you can help us with that, there we go. So just choose the option that's best for you there. And the question is, how interested are you in using AI to modernize and improve your patient billing and payments? And so I think what we're trying to do is figure out, are they curious, or are they actively searching? And given that this is a webinar on AI, I would imagine there's going to be a lot of interest here, but let's just see. What do you think we're going to get as a percentages, Andy?
I think we're going to get, let's say, 70% very interested.
Yeah.
I mean, they are here right now, so.
Yep. All right. Well, let's take a look. As soon as we have enough respondents, then I'll have Katie will give me the results here, and we can talk through it a little bit, and then you'll know who you're talking to. We'll give them just a couple more seconds to respond. But I'm with you. I think we're going to get a very high number of people that are very engaged here. They wouldn't be with us. All right. Do we have enough, Katie, for a response? You can just pop it up. All right. It looks like an amazing 81% are very engaged, followed by a smaller percentage of somewhat interested, and then a very, very minimal amount of not sure. I just like to learn more. And there's no not interested, which is not all that surprising. So with that, let's get started. Now you know who you're talking to. You've got a highly engaged audience, Andy. Let's teach us a little bit about AI.
All right. Well, again, my name's Andy Kwan. I'm the CEO of Raxia. I want to first thank UnisLink for this opportunity to speak to all of you today. We've had a long-standing partnership with UnisLink. We're currently supporting hundreds of UnisLink practices and with automating and improving patient financial engagement and modernizing patient billing. So today I'm going to start out by telling you a little bit about Raxia, dive into what makes our technology special, and give you an overview of our platform, and share a couple customer stories with you guys.
Sounds like a good path.
So, what does modernizing patient billing actually mean? So, for us, for Raxia, we think of ourselves as a digital-first patient billing platform. So that's what we mean by it. And that means we have online patient billing, and that provides clarity and transparency to your patients. We have the convenience of online payments. There is digital outreach. That means engagement, and it means moving beyond paper. It also means streamlined communication. So that's chat to provide, we provide facilities to better manage communications with your patients. So it really is everything a practice needs to bring their patient payment processes and all of their patient financial engagement to the here and now, like to today, what people expect now. So the next question then is, with all of those things that we think of as modern patient billing, what makes Raxia special? And it's a couple things. Overall, AI drives our automation platform and our outreach decision engine. We automate more patient payment processes across more EHR systems than any other vendor in the market right now. We have an AI-powered outreach decision engine, which can personalize digital outreach for each and every one of your patients. And that ultimately means that your patients will be informed of their bills in a mix of traditional paper and also text and email in a way, and this is really important, in a way that's custom to them as individuals. And you'll be seeing this in a few slides. Before we go further, though, I just want to let you guys all know that we've been doing this for a while, for a lot of practices, serving a lot of people. We have almost 8 million patients in our platform at this point. We work with 64 different practice management systems, and that number, both of those numbers, keep growing. So let's talk a little bit about where things are in patient AR, patient payments, and what it is that we're trying to solve, what the challenge is, and how AI is there to meet that challenge. So first off, the way things are right now, the American consumer in 2023 was responsible for $500 billion of medical costs. And you practices are collecting from patients more than ever before. We've seen numbers that it's nearly 30% of revenue is coming from patient payments at this point for independent practices. And patients, despite being such an outsized portion of the revenue stream now, they still put medical bills at the bottom of the priority pile. They drag their feet making payments. And together, this means that while it's a growing chunk of your revenue, it's also still the most difficult chunk to collect on.
Yeah, if I can add a little bit to that, Andy, when I saw this slide, this is a shocking dynamic. I mean, we do hundreds of practice assessments every year, and for a lot of practices, between 25 and 30% of their overall revenue is actually coming from the patient now. And so for a lot of them, that makes the patient either their second or their third biggest payer, which is shocking. And so when 30% of your practice revenue is coming from patients, it's really not enough. I mean, it's not an optional to be good at collecting patient balances, right? It's kind of make or break. So it's something you can really ignore here.
I mean, in the US healthcare payments landscape, there's Medicare and Medicaid. And third on the list, above any individual insurer, is patient payments. So it's like Medicare, Medicaid, patients, and then everybody else. It's a huge chunk. I mean, it's the big deductibles. These things have been percolating now for 10, 15 years. And we've arrived at the state where it's such a big part of every single practice's revenue stream.
Yeah, and the thing that I noticed at the bottom of this slide here is how long it takes on average for providers to get paid, that 136 days. And we see that same thing. So, um, you know, usually what happens is the patient is going to, we collect a copay, then it gets billed to the insurance company, and then when the insurance pays, the balance ends up going to the patient, and that's when we collect it. And that can be way out there, and that's why this number is so high. So I know, but if you can at some point talk a little bit about how it speeds payment, because this can really affect the cash flow of the practice. Like the way you measure that in KPI terms is accounts receivable days. And so what we like to look at for is AR days by patient balance, right?
Yep.
So I don't want to steal your thunder, but man, that's a huge dynamic to have to wait, 100, wait 4 months to get paid.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about all the missed communications that are going out that have no effect on the patient. But I will get to that. I got a bunch of slides about that.
All right, I won't ruin it.
Um, so why don't they pay is the next question, really. And top of the list is lack of financing options. But right up there are excuses like, I didn't know I received a bill. I was confused. I forgot to pay, or this is just a low priority. So all of these that are the I didn't know, I'm confused, I forgot crowd of people, those are all about poor communication. And we know this because, based on some stuff from Pew Research, 93% of Americans use the internet for finances, and 91% of them would prefer a digital method for handling their medical bills. And it actually goes beyond just being a convenience thing. Convenience plays a role, and we obviously address that with our digital payments and online billing capabilities, but it's also a communication challenge. So consumer attention itself is overwhelmed. Americans have too many priorities. There are thousands of daily decisions. In fact, by one set of research, Americans, the adult has to make 35,000 decisions per day. So there's all this noise. And the challenge then is, how do you break through the noise and make paying bills a priority? How do we communicate? How do we engage with patients to drive these desired behaviors? So we think at Raxia that it starts by not thinking of patients as one homogeneous group. They're not your patients. It's a collection of individuals. And each patient has their own set of preferences. Each patient has individual needs, personal preferences, engagement inclinations. And if we can customize patient financial engagement, if we can customize outreach to best address these preferences, these individual preferences, we really raise the odds of, first of all, cutting through the noise, elevating the importance of paying medical bills, and ultimately, the thing that we're all trying to do here is motivating the patient to action, which means paying their bills. So if we use this person as an example, right? So we know this patient, and we know that she needs a payment plan, so we can promote that in our interface. We know that she relies on her mobile phone more than email, so we know we can text her, and we should text her first and often. And she likely works all week and likes to relax on the weekend. So Friday at lunch is a great time to shoot her a message. So the question then is, you have all these individuals. How can we know this about these individuals?
I was just going to ask you that very question.
So here's the answer. And of course, it's going to be AI, right? Here at Raxia, we have accumulated tens of millions of events that track patient behavior around financial engagement. And we can use that data to make inferences about patients based on what is known about them demographically. So our AI is trained on this data, and from that, it can infer a lot about each individual's behavior and specifically how to change that behavior. So this way, the Raxia digital outreach system receives recommendations from the AI, the Raxia AI, of when best, and how best to reach each patient who has a balance. So this means that each patient now, each person is now an individual, and we treat them like individuals. So we customize the outreach, and that helps those practices be more effective to cut through the noise, to improve engagement. And when you do that, you decrease your material costs, you increase your payment rates, and you get your money faster. So,
So
oh, go ahead.
yeah, let me selfishly ask a couple questions. So does that mean we're not just customizing the channel that we're communicating with, but we're also the cadence?
That's right.
Like, okay, so and it's using my demographic information and maybe my payer information for you to identify when's the best time to send a text to James, and do we mix the channels? Do you sometimes do a
Yep.
text and sometimes email?
Yep. So there's a certain level of variety in there just because you can infer a lot, but hey, sometimes maybe their phone's not working or their email's running slow. So you want to mix it up a little bit. But the AI informs all of those decisions to come up with an optimal cadence to reach that patient. And we see sometimes 30% lift in terms of engagement rates by being able to customize those cadences to, again, cut through the noise, to get people's attention, to motivate them to action.
Yeah, for sure. Our clients have gotten amazing results from this. So I'm just curious, and this again, a selfish question. I don't mean to derail your
It's fine.
presentation. Um, have you ever noticed any patterns as to what sequences and channels get paid best, or is it kind of all over the place depending on the demographic of the patient?
And I think that's the beauty of it. It is all over the place. So, if you think about how most practices, prior to, our whole AI-driven approach, would deal with electronic communications, it would definitely be a one-size-fits-all kind of approach, right?
Yeah,
Hey, I think email works best. Let's just send out a lot of email, or we'll kind of mix it up like this. And it goes back to this whole idea that your patients aren't one homogeneous group. You want to come up with the right way for the person based on their demographic info. So 54-year-old male, living in a Boston suburb, I, the AI says that I want my messages on Tuesdays in the early evening, and that's probably about right. It can narrow those things down, and it means that there is no preferred method on a large basis. It's preferred methods on an individual basis, and that's what
so
it's about.
yeah, so does that end up affecting patient satisfaction too, because you end up using the channel that they're most likely to be prefer?
So I mean, it does. And one of the important things that we try to focus on here is making sure that we are monitoring patient feedback, that we are optimizing this not just to, of course, get that end state of payments, but also to do so while honoring patient satisfaction. We view that patient experience as sort of core to our mission, in fact, right? And it's definitely directly tied to good AR collection. So if a patient feels overwhelmed by communication, they'll unsubscribe or opt out, which completely defeats the purpose, right? So again, this is where AI plays a really critical role, right? It learns the right balance for each patient, and it ensures that we're sending the right message at the right time, no more, no less. So it's really, it's balancing that satisfaction still with the end goal that we're all trying to get to here. More payments, faster payments, lower costs.
Yeah, amen. All right, well, thanks for letting me derail you a little bit there.
No worries. um, Okay, so yeah, I mean, this fits right in though. We have three patients here, right? They all have slightly different requirements, and they require three different approaches. And the Raxia AI is there to cook up an individualized cadence for every patient. So one of these patients, you look at the guy at the top, he really needs to be reached digitally and repeatedly. The second one could be an older woman, wants the reassurance of receiving a phone call as well as receiving digital communications to encourage her to make a payment. And the last one needs to have a payment plan as an option to close the deal. So again, it's all about communicating with your patients in a way they are inclined to already communicate. So, interesting fact, our data team has found that it takes an average of 4 touches to get a patient to pay. And that touches a piece of paper, an email, a text, phone call, 4 touches. On average, someone will pay. And while the Raxia AI can tell us when and how to make those touches, you still need a platform to reach out to the patients themselves. There's no set of human beings that can place these volumes of calls and to individually direct these texts in a way that can drive the outcomes that we want here. So what we need then is Raxia's intelligent automation platform as well to reach out to the patients. You want to reach out to them consistently at the recommended time over the best medium as quickly as possible and as many times as reasonably possible, again, weighing against customer satisfaction to maximize those payments. So if you look at this graph, right, with each passing month, I mean, in fact, each passing day, your odds of getting a patient to pay decline. And this is based on our own data, in fact. So we found that at 180 days, the likelihood of a patient paying drops below 10%. So it is just a cliff there. We view those first 0 to 60 days as critical. So the goal here is to move fast to maximize patient payments, and that's what Raxia's intelligent automation does for you, right? So this is ultimately the answer to the patients who say, I didn't realize I was billed or I forgot, right? The Raxia AI works hand in hand with intelligent automation to get that right message out at the right times over the right medium to avoid billing ending up in those latter bars of the chart, right? You're trying to stay out of the 180 plus.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question. So, and maybe you're going to answer this, so don't let me ruin it. But how early is the earliest that we can reasonably engage the patient to pay their balance?
So we have something, and I'll touch on that in a few slides, called digital first billing. And the idea is to give the digital outreach methods the first crack at reaching the patient. And that means that as soon as a claim is adjudicated and it is now a patient balance, we can send a text out that same evening if that is what is ideal for that patient based on the AI's recommendation. So within the first several days, we can get a message right out to that patient. And you'll find that they'll start paying their bills and you never have to even send a piece of paper at all.
Yeah, obviously huge cost savings, right?
Huge cost savings.
Yeah.
So again, these two things, intelligent automation, AI-driven outreach, it really ends up decreasing the amount of staff time and effort directed towards patient payments. It is a 20 to 40% increase in collections. We've seen this across our entire practice, customers that we have. And it's a 30 to 70%, sometimes even higher reduction in statements.
Yeah, and we've seen the same thing. What I would maybe add to this, Andy, is the cash flow element, right? So
Yes.
many of our clients have cut their patient AR days, which is how we measure how fast they're getting paid, in half, actually, by using Raxia for the outreach side. So, and again, a couple selfish questions here. I know it changes constantly because of postage, but can you give me an idea of how much on average a patient statement, and postage is running right now? Because if we're able to do everything electronically first, then we don't have to pay that at all.
That's right. That's right. It varies, but somewhere around $1 all in for everything. As a quick, I mean, usually be a little tiny bit less than that. But as a rough measure, you could just say, well, if you didn't send 4,000 statements, you just saved yourself $4,000. I mean, it's really quick math.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen this, but we often encounter practices that are running their entire statement balance with no filters or anything. And then literally a person goes through this stack of already printed, already paid for statements and looks at them and goes, oh, no, we can't send that one, throws it in the garbage. Oh, we can't send this one, throws it in the garbage, right? And so they're literally wasting money by using the statements themselves as a work queue to try to decide who they're going to send it to and who they're not going to send it to.
So our platform, and part of how we do our integration, it's the Raxia Orchestrate platform. Part of that process is defining filters to do that filtering electronically rather than physically. So before the data even arrives and gets mailed out, we have a process to define business rules so that you're not actually going through a stack of paper and tossing bills that you've already printed and paid for out before putting a stamp on it and sending it out into the world. It's huge savings. It's huge savings doing it that way. So I'm going to race through, and the next slide actually is directly to the question you just had, James, or the comment you had regarding digital first patient billing. So I'm going to race through a couple of the other just features of our platform right now. For us, that means giving, again, AI personalized digital outreach, that first shot at reaching the patient. And when you lead with digital billing, patients will very often pay before a single piece of paper even needs to be printed and stuffed in an envelope and sent out, which saves time and money. And this goes back to the whole idea of reducing paper statement costs. Typical is 30 to 70%, but we've seen as high as 85% reductions in paper costs because of digital first billing and the largely compressed AR days, using digital outreach and getting those touches out early. The Your Health Bill platform, so that is the patient-facing platform that Raxia provides. It's the billing portal for your patients. And this is all about bringing that modern patient experience to your modern patients. And here, patients can conveniently, view their bills on whatever device they like. So it's mobile, desktop, tablets, whatever it is. They can make payments on the spot. And this, again, translates to 20 to 40% more patient payments, 5 times more quickly. And there is a substantial, again, 30 to 70 to 80% decrease in material costs. And I'm going to go over a couple of case studies at the very end where I can, give you some actual numbers we've had from some of our practices that's, obviously right in line with these expectations. And these are, on average. Again, this isn't like I'm picking outliers here. Like on average, this is what we see across all of the practices that we work with. We also found that Your Health Bill, being a convenient platform for patients to use, it also means happier patients. So detailed online bills brings that clarity and that transparency. There's a study by MedStats that showed that 88% of patients want more straightforward healthcare bills. They want more clarity, more transparency. And again, that's an important part of our mission as well, is to bring that level of convenience and clarity to your patients. Card on file makes online payments of medical bills as simple as, I don't know, buying something on Amazon. So it's like the card's already there, you hit buy and you're done. Except it's not buy, it's pay, but same concept. It's that level of convenience that modern consumers have become accustomed to. And finally, automated payment plans, they help patients meet their financial obligations while helping practices capture more revenue. So we allow it to be broken into individual payments, and that means you can get your money.
So can I drill down on this a little bit and ask you a couple questions about that? So I know we've worked with you before on tailoring statements for clients. So what kinds of options do clients have when it comes to customizing their statements when they're coming from Raxia?
In terms of the appearance of the statements, the physical statements?
Yeah, like what's appearing on the statement or the overall layout, that kind of stuff.
So there is control over the color. The branding is there. So we work with our designer to make sure that the branding for each practice is on the bill, so it's very clear where the bill is coming from. Also on each statement, there is a QR code, or there will soon be actually. We're adding the QR code shortly, and that will allow, again, that linkage to the digital world. So you might be sending a piece of paper, but people don't like tearing off a little thing and then writing a check and stuffing it in an envelope. They'd rather take out their phone, scan the QR code, and make the payment right away on the device, whatever device they have, right? They can take the tablet, they can take their phone, whatever it is, they can scan that QR code, and they're ready to go. So,
and then on credit card on file, the one you've got in the middle there, and again, maybe I'm getting too in the weeds here, but can you tell us a little bit about the benefits of being PCI compliant and running credit card on file? Because I've seen many practices over my career that are storing patient credit cards in a shared spreadsheet. And so maybe you could comment, is that legal? What are the risks associated with that? And then how does having a PCI compliant solution help address that stuff?
So it's technically speaking legal, but it doesn't meet the requirements of PCI certification, which is what we have. So we've worked with practices who would write it down on sticky notes and make a pile of them and then run them at the end of the day. I mean, it's like horrendously non-secure.
Insecure, yeah.
Awful. And, the way we deal with credit cards is, we don't even store them. We work with a very large payment processing partner, and all of that data is encrypted and tokenized right there with the bank instead. And we just trade tokens back and forth. So we're not storing any cardholder data. We treat that as very precious information, just as precious as, and I'll get to this as well, as all that PHI HIPAA secured information. We treat this stuff very seriously. Stuff is not written down, printed out. It's all encrypted on highly secured servers, located in our secured data centers,
Yeah,
or the partner banks that we're working with themselves.
so we don't have credit cards floating around the office.
Absolutely not.
And then on the payment plans, which I get a question very often, I'm sure someone will ask it before we're done, is how does the computer know what's okay for a payment plan, and what are the rules, and how, that maybe, and if you're going to cover that later, that's great, but if not, maybe you could address that.
I can speak to that now. So the payment plans, when an administrator is assigned with each practice to set them up, they have two things they can control: the bare minimum amount that is acceptable as a payment plan, as well as how many months is the maximum amount of time to pay it off. So whatever number is larger is considered the floor. So, if you have $100 and the minimum is 20 and you have 4 months, then you can do no less than a $25 monthly payment. So these parameters, these rules are set ahead of time, and then those are what are offered on a sliding bar to the actual customer.
Okay, so the practice decides that as they're setting Raxia up.
That's right.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, sorry for slowing you down.
Oh, no worries. So let's see. And then that's right. We can talk about automated payment plans. Okay, so chat. So the integrated live chat system that we have, that's part of your health bill as well. This allows your patients to also get their questions answered right from the Your Health Bill portal. So they can click, opens up a chat window, and they can get quick answers to the questions. And again, it goes back to this whole idea of convenience. Quick answer means faster payments, it means higher satisfaction, and it's lower costs.
Yeah, so Andy, they're not talking to a person here, right?
This
They're
would be a
talking,
person.
help me out.
So this is integrated with a support desk, but this also gives the ability for one person to support multiple patients at the same time, all via chat in a way that's a controlled conversation, and it allows for a great deal of flexibility as again about getting fast answers to the patient's questions, so you can get those payments done more quickly.
And maybe for the majority of the audience that are already UnisLink clients that are listening to this, that is a feature that is beneficial to our call center, right? Because it allows to chat with the patient without having the call, and then maybe they can get a payment without ever actually having to receive a call, and that's just more efficient. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
And we are looking at chatbots, and it is on our roadmap for the end of the year. So that is on the roadmap to even further, get that force multiplier to your call desk to make them more effective and more efficient. So that is there. But right now it's about this sort of, making it more efficient for your call desk to answer those questions quickly for those patients that have questions.
Yeah. Awesome.
So the Raxia Patient Payment Manager, this is a way to bring the front desk needs and integrate it with the back office. So this allows practices to take payments using Raxia and using the data in Raxia right at the front desk. It's the same Raxia online billing and payment system that your patients see, and also allows you to set the same things that patients would otherwise do through their own interface and interactions with the Your Health Bill portal. So you can set up payment plans and this allows you to link the front office with the back office. And finally, as I mentioned before, tracking customer satisfaction is an important part of the mission here at Raxia. And so we have measurements for NPS scores and feedback. And this is where that's usually a measure of a patient's satisfaction with the practice. And what we found is that the convenience when a practice brings Raxia's Your Health Bill platform into their workflow the convenience that brings to their patients raises the NPS scores for the practice as a whole. And we also track something called CSAT, which is specifically about a patient's satisfaction with their interaction with the Your Health Bill portal. And we are at 95% on that. So industry averages is around 50 for an NPS score and 78% in healthcare. So again, this is trying to emphasize how important this is to us to not just hold things at parity, but to raise customer satisfaction by bringing all of this modern patient billing into practices that didn't have it before.
Yeah, let me add a little bit to this. I just read an article a couple of weeks ago from McKinsey that showed that the patient's experience with revenue cycle has almost as much impact on their overall satisfaction as their experience with the doctor,
Yes,
which is mind-blowing, right? It just means that the doctor can do a phenomenal job, but if you do a kind of a crummy job on the collection side, then they end up becoming a really unhappy patient.
that's absolutely a fact.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
And we're here to make that a much more, I don't know whether paying bills is ever pleasurable, but certainly an
Yeah.
elevated experience from what
There
it has been before.
there you go.
All right, so let's jump into a couple case studies here. So this is an ortho group. They had 7 locations, 28 providers. So this particular ortho group had a digital payment form on their website to accept credit card payments. But before Raxia came aboard, this is the whole convenience versus outreach thing. Before Raxia was brought in, this practice group was sending 4 statements per patient encounter and having to manually make follow-up collection calls. So one of their biggest pain points was that of their patients who did pay, it was on average 130 to 140 days after the encounter, and they had already sent out 3 statements. So you can imagine all that cost. You're waiting 4.5 months to get a payment. This practice had to place a lot of follow-up calls. They were carrying a ton of patient AR. They were only getting 21% of their payments in that first 60 days. Again, that critical 60-day period. And that, can't say it enough, that critical 60 days is where you really need to and want to motivate patients and engage with those patients to have them make payments. So after Raxia came in, 73%, triple the number, were paying in the first 60 days. It decreased their AR carry, improved their time to revenue. Their mailed statements decreased by 62%. So for them, it was nearly 4,000 fewer statements per month, and annualized, you're looking at $50,000. Like it was a huge amount of money that was saved by not having to wait 4.5 months to get a payment. The average monthly patient AR, though, as well. So it's not just about faster, right? It's about more. The average monthly patient AR collection also went up by 27%. So faster money, more money, happier patients. It all works together.
Yeah, it's perfect. In fact, let me just add a little here, maybe put a plug in for another webinar we have coming up. The way we measure that 21 going to 73% in the first 60 days, we would measure that in terms of patient accounts receivable days or patient AR days. And I already talked about that earlier, but if you'd like to learn about those KPIs, I think we have a webinar coming up called The Power of KPIs that you can attend that will talk about several other metrics that we use to measure performance. So let's look at your other case study. I know it's similar.
All right. Yes, this is and these guys, what's interesting about them is that they were using the outreach system that was built into the practice management system they were using. So it was one of these PMs that came with their own version of digital outreach and digital payments. And so they were using that one before switching to Raxia. So they were already sending texts and statements, but they weren't really seeing strong results. And this goes back to the whole, in this case, about AI optimization, making all the difference. The idea that one size fits all doesn't fit a lot of people because they're individual. So they weren't seeing strong results. After they implemented our AI-powered outreach, they doubled their patient collection in just the first month. So they were originally collecting 127 grand. That first month, they collected $250,000 right away, just because the outreach was optimized and it was going out consistently. Um, of the 4,500 patients carrying a balance, the average monthly collections went up by 41%, and not just the first month, like longitudinally went up by 41%. The average payment time went from 126 days, those are those AR days, James, down to 51.8 days. So we got it below the 60-day mark. And importantly, 73% of the payments now come in without needing to send a statement. So they actually saw a 13x ROI, return on investment, on moving to Raxia. And it's just a great example of how AI-driven engagement can really have a drastic impact on outcomes, even when there was originally a digital strategy in place.
Yeah, well, think about the demographic there too with OB, right? You're going to be younger,
That's
so
right.
they're responsive to the more electronic methods rather than the paper.
Again,
So
why am I getting an envelope with a piece of paper in it?
yeah, they don't want that anymore.
So just because it's out there and it's important to address it, security and compliance is really important to us. It was an important pillar of what we did right from the very beginning. All of our systems, processes, communications, they all meet, security, privacy, and consumer protection concerns and requirements. We're fully HIPAA compliant across everything. Again, software, servers, infrastructure, operations. We're PCI compliant. That is for the card industry and credit card payment handling. Fully PCI compliant. We encrypt everything, and by the rules, you only have to do stuff in transit. We do stuff in transit, and we have separate key systems. It's go out of our way to make sure things are
Yeah,
hyper secure. Our
yeah.
entire staff is in the U.S. Oh, go ahead.
No, keep going. I just have a question for you on that's related to security.
So our entire staff is domestic in the U.S., so we keep it all onshore. And our data is housed within not just one, but multiple data centers in Eastern Virginia. And specifically to legal, we comply with TCPA, CAN-SPAM, and even the higher standard of the California Consumer Privacy Act. And this is reviewed annually by our legal team to make sure that we are, again, reaching out in a legal, proper way to each and every one of your patients and each and every one of the patients that we serve. So we want to make sure that nobody gets in trouble with anything, and all that data is super secure.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about when a patient gets a text or when they get an email, what are they seeing in that? What's coming in that? Is there anything that is there PHI in that, or what they see typically?
So what they see in the text is just an announcement that they have a bill and then a link that they need to click through. And then there, when they click through, they have to provide some amount of identifying information, and then they can see their PHI. So there is no PHI present in any of those text messages. It is a personalized link for that patient to go to a site, enter further information, and then they can view um, their bill with all the protected information inside of it. Emails, since you have more room and you can actually style it, we'll have the branding for the practice there. So that provides that extra little level of comfort. This isn't spam, this is for real. But again, there is no actual PHI in the email. There's a link, they click to it, they go to a site, they have to identify themselves, and only then can they actually view their bill.
Gotcha. So I was going to ask when credit card has been stored, when they come back the second time, because you store the credit card on file, does that
Had to type in, and that's the typical stuff, your credit card number, all that information, as well as their address. None of that has to be done. Once it's on file, you log in, you've identified yourself, because these links are all personalized, and your card is right there, and you can use that as a payment choice, and you can pay right away. Again, we're trying to bring that modern consumer payment experience to patients in the healthcare space.
Yeah, if they've already paid before and it's on file, and then I get a text, can you estimate how many total clicks or taps it's going to be for me to go from text to payment? Is it three or four or five? How many, what does it look like? It's a
Um,
tough question. I know. I'm sorry.
yeah, I haven't measured that. I'm trying to play it out in my head. To click through, click again. 4 clicks, I think you can get to payment
Yeah. If you've
at this
chosen.
point.
Okay. Sorry for, I'm throwing you off now. Um,
I'm almost
but
tempted to fire one up right now to see what it is, but I'll stick to the script here.
okay. Yeah.
Um, and I think that's it. Again, I really want to thank you, Slink. Thank you, James, for
Yeah.
for inviting us
Yeah.
to
Yep.
meet everybody.
Yeah, we have quite a few questions here. So if you can stay just a little bit longer, we'd love
Love to.
to get through some of those. I know a lot of the folks on this call are UnisLink clients. So if you have an interest in exploring Roxy for your practice, if you're not already using it, then you can zap that QR code that you're seeing on this
Okay.
screen here, and we'll schedule a time to chat with you guys. If you're actually not a UnisLink client, there is a free revenue cycle assessment that we can do for you, where we would actually calculate the value of working with UnisLink and using tools like Raxia. In fact, maybe Katie could even put that link in the chat for us, so that you can get a link to that if you want that. Or you can just go to unislink.com and click the request a quote link. But so I've got, it looks to me like about 10 or so questions. I don't know if we have time to go through all of it, but so one of the first questions I got here is, how well my patient, they're basically saying their patients are old. They treat an elderly population, and maybe it's a cardiology group, but how do they respond to digital patient billing?
That is actually a great question. And we get that a lot, actually. And what we found actually is that older patients, and this is from our own data, are way more digitally engaged than practices expect. While some still prefer, traditional methods of payment, a large portion of elderly patients are absolutely comfortable with email and text messaging, especially, and this is important, especially when the communication is clear and convenient. So you do have to bear in mind that the design of these interfaces is still very important, and we take a great deal of pride in making our interfaces, our portal, as convenient and friendly as possible. Um, you know, Many of these elderly patients actually appreciate not having to deal with a piece of paper, and we give them the option of choosing how they want to be contacted. So we're always ensuring that we're trying to meet them where they are. And the other thing that should be noted, and I'm sure many of you have seen this too, many patients over 65 are on their iPads all the time. They are 100% happy to use their iPad, tap away, and pay their medical bills right there on a tablet.
Yeah. All right. So this is kind of a longer question, but I'm going to see if I can summarize it so that it's easier. I think they're basically getting at how do you make sure that AI doesn't send too many messages to the patient?
So again, this is that whole balance between too much and too little, and understanding what is the most effective while maintaining customer satisfaction. One of the things that the AI does, in addition to finding the right time and the right method, is actually looking at the right spacing between touches. So that actually does it does factor into how the AI infers the best time to contact. So it considers, okay, the optimal time since the last text is probably 6 days from now, not 2 days, not 4 days, 6 days. And it is one of the considerations that it makes, and to drive its recommendations to the automated intelligent automation platform that makes the actual outreach. So that spacing is of, right up there with, concerns about how and when as well.
I got you. All right. So this person's saying, what specialties are the best for Roxy? So maybe I'll ask it a different way. So, what kind of practices are going to get the best bang for their buck on using a tool like Roxia?
So it's another good question. We see a lot of success across a wide range of practices and specialties. We've worked with PT to large hospitalist groups. I mean, it runs the gamut. So it isn't sort of this thing that only works for a very narrow segment. The Raxia platform does deliver results broadly. In particular, though, we do see, though, that practices where patients have a recognizable connection to their provider, they tend to see faster success. So
Oh, okay.
all practices will see success with our platform, but the speed to the success is a little faster if there's some sort of connection there. So, if you contrast that, groups with more transactional encounters, sort of labs, radiology groups, emergency medicine, it
Sure.
takes a little longer to see the impact because there's just lower patient familiarity. Familiarity. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Let me look here. So this person wants to know, well, how long does it take to get started up? Let's say they decided today they wanted to use Roxy, how long would it take to become live?
So, with the presumption that it is a practice management system with which we are familiar, and again, we've integrated with 64 of them, it typically takes about 6 to 12 weeks at that point. For the first, well, let me think about that. That 6 to 12 weeks is for the EHR integration. It is actually just a 6 week from start to finish project plan that we typically use to onboard a new practice. That time can be compressed based on whether some stuff is already familiar. Say, if it's a UnisLink client, your account managers already know those practices. A lot of that stuff can be figured out ahead of time using similar cadences and similar rules. But, we're starting from scratch. We give it 6 weeks.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of things you're working on, and can you indulge us a little bit? What types of innovative things are you guys planning on in the future?
I might actually kick this over to Scott Wilson. So Scott is one of our co-founders, and he is our chief of product. So he is master of the roadmap. So come on, Scott. Let's give him the good
Yeah, I
stuff.
mean, we have a lot of product improvements planned for this year. I mean, our goal is always to reduce staff effort around, patient financial engagement, to help practices and RCM companies, have their teams focus on more impactful work. But to that end, we're really putting a lot of resources into our chat, which Andy mentioned earlier. And so that's not just, having live chat, it's also having the ability to handle multiple chats at once and also moving to automations. So understanding common patient questions and being able to automate those interactions with patients in a very secure and controlled way. And what we've found so far is that it's about understanding patient intent. So what kind of question is the patient asking? What do they really mean by the way they phrase that question? And how do we automate the best type of response to, again, get patients, the answers to their questions very rapidly, but also reduce the overhead that practices and RCM companies incur in managing patient inquiries. So that's really kind of where we're putting a lot of our focus this year.
That's super exciting stuff. So, well, we're almost up on time here. I was going to ask you, can a client put this on their website? Is that a normal part of your onboarding process? Or tell me a little bit about if they've already got it on a website, but they don't have a patient portal of any kind. Can they use Roxy on that?
So for the patient payment piece of it, 100%. So there is a link that we set up that's dedicated to each and every practice. It is branded with the practice's logo, and it is the sort of patient payment landing page. And that link can be just embedded right there into each and every practice's website if they want.
I gotcha. All right. Oh, that's great. And then I was going to ask you, you have to see one, but the Roxia statements are beautiful, actually. I think they're the most attractive statements that I've seen. I think they're very readable. They take what looks very complex in some other systems and makes it look beautiful.
Well,
So
thank you.
is there a way to provide that to the patient before they leave? Like if they come in today and we want to provide them with a copy of their statement, is there a way to provide something like that to them?
Yep. So you don't have to just wait for the intelligent automation platform to send something out. Every given um, you know patient, there's a link in their in the portal for the front desk, and they can just click a button and print out a statement, a fresh paper statement based on what the current balance is at that moment. Well, at the moment that the data was synced, and we do it on a nightly
Sure.
basis. but it can be printed out right there and handed to the patient. So it would be the most up-to-date version to the last evening, with all the beautiful color and layout that you would expect from our statements.
Okay, wonderful. So we just print a PDF and then print it out and hand it to the
That's
patient.
right.
Okay. Well, there were a couple more questions. I promise we know who those questions came from, so we'll send you an answer via email. Andy, thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
here and teaching us a little bit about how the AI works and how to individualize the outreach to patients. And for the folks that are attending, if you'd like to learn more about Raxia, then you can use that QR code on the right. That would be someone from UnisLink reaching out to you to explain how that works. And if you want to learn more about Raxia, then you can use that URL that you see right there. And their phone number is right there if you'd like to contact them directly. Either one is a perfectly suitable choice. But Andy, thank you so much. We're very grateful for our partnership with Raxia, and we appreciate you educating us today.
We love working with you guys, and thanks so much for the opportunity. Yeah, thank
All
you.
right. Well, take care. We will see you all in the next one.
All right. Bye now.
Bye-bye.